Okay, very quick background. Back in 1987, I looked in my rear view mirror, looked at my Greenpeace car sticker and realised the hypocrisy of it. So kept the sticker and got rid of the car, and then started riding everywhere on my bike. It was a belligerent environmental thing to do. But what I very quickly realised was my quality of life went through the roof. On my long distance journeys, I sit on the train doing my work. I never have to go to the gym. It saves me thousands of pounds a year. I agree with Klaus entirely. I get on my bike in the morning. I live in Woolton. The first thing I do is whiz down Rose Street opposite my house and go, whee, and I'm off. And so I just absolutely love it. I then met my wife, and she was just a physical exercise nutter, always going to the gym and that kind of stuff. And I said, do you want to go on a cycling holiday? We went over to Northern Ireland, around the beautiful coast of Antrim. And she said, yeah, I'll have a go at that. Yeah, it seems like good exercise, yeah. And as we were packing, she said, can I bring the iron? And I said, you can bring what you want. You're carrying it. She didn't take the iron. But she fell in love with our way of traveling as much as I did. And you know what? One of the things that makes her most angry is when her friends say, is he still making you ride your bike around the place? And she goes absolutely nuts at this. She finds it a personal affront, as though I could ever make her do anything against her will. So we fell in love with riding our bike. And then we had our daughter, quite late. And our daughter is now 11 years old. And when our daughter was a baby, I got a bike seat from Germany that it was a car seat that you can strap onto the back of your bike as well. And so she was born on a bike. And then she transformed onto a bow bike, the ones you've just seen there, not at the back, in front. So she thought she was driving. She had her shades on. She was in charge. I had to keep her off the brake, particularly the front one. And so my daughter, just like my wife and like me, has fallen in love with cycling. When she was 5 years old, she turned around to one of her friends in school and said, what did you do? What did you do for your holiday? She says, I rode 100 miles on my bike. And he went, no, you mean 10. She went, no, 100. My dad's a nutter. We went all the way around the Isle of Man and everything. And so now she's 11 years old. She's just started our local secondary school. And to her, to leave in the morning and walk to school, it's about a mile and a half, is not even a thought. She just does it because that's how she lives her life. If it's raining, as it's just said there, the kids have already said it, it gets wet. You get wet. It's only a bit of rain. So what? You get dry when you get there. And so that's my personal experience. Okay, so now let's move on to where we are now. 20 years ago, I did a series of programs for Granada. They were called Trevor and Simon Cycling Shorts, regional program. Nice bike rides that you could do around the northwest. And in Liverpool, I said, okay, I'm now going to ride around Liverpool cycle lanes. That was good. And that's actually what I did on television, right? And the planning officers went absolutely mad. Now listen to this, Nancy, this is my response. The planning officers said, how dare you? You've seen our integrated super-duper cycling strategy. And I said, with all due respect, if you tear it up and put it end to end, it's about the same length as your cycle lanes. 20 years later, it is exactly the same. This city has cycle lanes where it's convenient to put them in, and when you really need the help, when you get to the roundabout, it goes, I'm actually going to invent a sign. I was talking to Chris about this. I'm going to spray a cycle lane, and it's going to have crossed fingers on it. Because that's what you should have at the end of every cycle lane in Liverpool. It says, there you go, did you enjoy that? Oh, a bit tricky here. Off you go, see it on the other side. So let's see how things are going to change now. I've been banging on about this for so long. However, I truly believe there is now a political will on a city basis and on a city region basis to change things. And I'll give you my personal reasons for that. When Chris and Andy Burnham announced that they were going to do their 1,000 miles of traffic-free routes around Manchester, I sent Mayor Anderson a text, and it just said, see, Manchester's left us behind again. You had that on your desk 2 years ago. It was the Green Corridor Network I did from my review about the green spaces. And he went, come and see me. But anyway, I said what we could do. I said what the possibilities were. And then I did a little polemic for the Merseyside cycling campaign. They said, oh, write us an article about your new role. And I did a sarcastic piece mentioning the cycle lane, and I also mentioned that years ago I went to Burkina Faso, to Ouagadougou. It was the capital, the poorest capital of the poorest country, of the poorest continent in the world, and it had more segregated cycle lanes than Liverpool, and I think it's still the case today. That's how backwards this city is with cycling. It's not ambivalent to cycling, it's anti-cycling, and that now has to change. It has to change on a city basis, and it has to change on a city region basis as well. But I really believe the political will is there, because Mayor Anderson suddenly announced he wanted me to go to a special council meeting, and I've also spoken to Steve Rothermott on the Metro Mayor basis, and his assistant, his personal assistant said, look, your article that you wrote for the major cycling campaign really upset him, and he does have a temper. And I said, what do you mean? He said, no, actually really personally upset him, because he just had a discussion with his wife that they wanted to buy their grandkids bikes for Christmas. That's what he wanted to do, because he remembered, when you're a kid, best thing ever, riding a bike around, freedom, your horizons are stretched. And his wife turned around to him and said, are you mad? Do you know how dangerous it is out there? And so that combined with the article, the little article I wrote, suddenly I've been given a £4 million budget to get things going. And now all of a sudden we can really see some progress around here. That is a drop in the ocean. It's actually a really funny figure, 4 million quid. You can either do lots of things really, really badly, or a couple of things quite well, I think. So we're going to start by doing a loop. It already exists. We have the prom, we have the loop line, and we have the Leeds-Liverpool Canal. But there is a disconnect between those three things. And I believe if we can spend that money very wisely, with a little bit of money from the city region as well, then we can create a completely traffic-free loop that goes all the way around the city and reaches out to the city region. And then you put in your spokes, and that's where the plan starts to develop. The money will have to come from central government. That is for sure, except we've just put in for a Greener Cities bid of 230 million quid, and I've already said to the mayor, just give it all to me. If you want to make a greener city, I can't think of anything, you've seen it, that will help it better than a properly segregated cycle route system with walking infrastructure as well. So that was kind of where I'm at the moment. So my retort would be, thank you for the lessons of Denmark, and not enough plans, more action from the city and city region, but I really think it is different now. I really believe times are changing and things are about to start moving in our city and city region. Thank you.
Great. Kevin, thank you.
I'm not an actor, Jerry, so I'm going to stay seated if that's okay, if you don't mind. Just to follow up on a few things from the presentations, really, and thank you both. Thank you for the presentations; they were really interesting. One of the things that struck me from both of them was the kind of the abstract map, really, of Copenhagen in Klaus's presentation and also Liverpool in Natalie's, and that they are incredibly similar in look. Obviously, just with the river on the other side, but obviously out on the street they are so unbelievably different. As a cyclist, as a pedestrian, you know, it couldn't really be argued. And I'd like to pick up on a couple of things that you mentioned right at the beginning, Jerry, in terms of the kind of the politics of polarization that we're in at the moment, you know, and we have this culture of kind of, you know, left and right and us and them and whatnot. And I think just beyond the B word, I don't think there's many things that polarize people more than cycling. And I think we have a duty to almost stop talking about cycling and about trying to further the aims of cycling and just start talking about creating better cities and more livable cities, because it's not really about the bike, it's about creating a better place for everyone, regardless of how you travel. And of course, there were some brilliant examples in Klaus's presentation about the wonderful infrastructure and the bridges that you have in Copenhagen, and you only need look out the window at some of the unbelievable architecture that we have in this city, and unfortunately we just don't notice it because we're not prioritising people in the way that we travel. So the elephant in the room essentially is how we deal with the traffic problem that we've got in this city. That's the thing that we need to address first, essentially. I also just really quickly want to share something on that kind of eye contact and shared experience that you talked about is so important. It's kind of that walk down here from Lime Street, and maybe 20 or 30 years ago, walking along Church Street would have been quite a difficult experience, and today it's just incredibly easy because we move and we mingle because we're people and we're able to do it, and we're not constrained when we're given that freedom of space. And lastly as well, just on the children point that you talked about, the stronger cognitive strengths of children who travel actively, and I think we've got examples of that in some of the work that we do in schools, and we do a survey with children in terms of audit in the school and their journey to school, and we know we've got Lou in the room tonight actually who does these surveys, and we've got fantastic examples of the difference in opinions of children who are driven to school versus children who walk or cycle when they actually draw their journey, and a child who will get a lift to school from mum or dad or whoever. There's no story there. There's no narrative. It's just get in the car, get dropped off. That's it. Ask a child to draw their journey to school who walks and cycles, and it's full of smells and sights and dog poo and this, that, and the other. It's a very sensory experience, and the importance of that can't be overlooked really. So, yeah, that's it for me.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you. Dan.
I'll stay with Kevin's sitting down theme, if that's okay with everyone. Klaus, thanks very much. Nicola, thanks very much, Simon. Just wanted to pick up on Klaus's presentation. It must have been like a magic carpet ride. I could see people's faces really smiling throughout, and I think that's, for me it was anyway, he really reached out in a thing that connects with us all, which is children. Unfortunately, I've always spoke about children in this sense, but I've never sort of had the same reciprocation back from other people really. It's always been about, we've got to work with politicians, we've got to work with people, with policy makers. Really, what I've always tried to do as someone who sees bikes as therapeutic is try to work in those margins, is try to engage the children, try to engage the parents of those children. Klaus spoke about that if we have our children on the streets, somehow, 10 years, I remember 10 years ago like that, I'm sure you all do. If we have them riding on our streets in the right way, they'll just take it all. They'll take it all forward for us naturally. Actually, what we see now, and there's a gentleman who I prefer to be here rather than Simon, but it was the young lad Blaine, and now he's working with a lot of young lads who are reappropriating our roads in a completely different way. I'm not sure this goes on in Copenhagen, but we've got lads who think they own the roads because they've never been taught, they've never been allowed it, and it's classic anarchism. So that message there, that's what happens as a result if we don't engage our children in cycling. Other than that, what struck me was the difference between, and Natalie, I haven't seen one of your presentations before, but that was a classic Liverpool presentation for me, and what I've seen both from policymakers and also both from activists. Far too much going on for people. Again, working in the margins. We're delivering the message completely wrong. What do we have in Klaus's one? Kids smiling with little snippets that we could all understand. And we're not doing enough of that. Again, for someone who is dealing with people who we need to engage, we're talking about obesity. That's probably the most difficult part of where I work, maybe in North Liverpool, where we're working with kids like that. This is the message that we've got to get across to them, that the parents and the families can do this properly. The maps and some of the other messages that we're getting out there, just don't reach them, just turn off to them. The last thing I'd just like to pick up on is what Simon was saying there about 20 years ago. He said this. I mean, what's been going on for 20 years? Who's been delivering the message? It's really sad. We can't blame Joe Anderson for 20 years. We can't. We knew this. If everybody remembers 2007 and the Big Dig, something should have happened. So whatever's wrong, we really need to start looking at shooting the messenger. It's the message we've always known. We've always known that economically it'll benefit us. We need to and pick up on what Simon says. In fact, pick up on Simon on a regular basis now and say, "Nah, you're delivering that," because he delivered that with passion. That's great. So it's from there that we go. But yeah, let's forget about the last 20 years, but learn lessons from who's delivering the message, maybe. Nice one.
Thank you.
Fantastic lineup of speakers. I think Klaus said it. Where do we want to be in 10 years' time? We don't want to be where we are now. Simon's already said it. 20 years ago, things were happening. I've been cycling, I think, since Liverpool John Moores University put a charge on car parking. I mean, it's doing it well before that to school, I know. But that was what changed it in me. And, you know, we've had cycle rides with the council, Eddie Klein, challenges. We didn't call them races, we call them challenges from outer South Liverpool to the pier head, and the cyclist always got there first. So that sort of reinforces some of the things about what Klaus says about timing. You know, I'm sitting next to a medical practitioner who constantly bores me about the amount of money that can be saved, which is, you know, which you said in your point, you know, we have got climate change. The city's got a climate emergency, and cycling has got to be one of the big answers for that. So let's push ahead with that. Congestion. Liam Robinson in Mersey Travel's been charged with getting our air cleaner. And I sometimes sort of think, well, that's fantastic. But equally so, they want to put a dual carriageway into the city. I don't know. I find that one department's pulling against another. But I will applaud, and I'll live in hope, as Simon does, about the work that's going ahead. And I just hope I see it in my lifetime.
That was a comment, so thank you very much. Would anybody else like to?
Hello, thank you. I'd just like to say that not all of us get about by walking and cycling. Some of us use wheels, but not powering them themselves. And I just today I went through Liverpool 1, and it was all right, but everyone, the pedestrians were walking with their heads down, looking at their phones, and I had to try and avoid them. And the same on the way here, there's a cyclist came whizzing past me on a pedestrian area, and again he thought I could get out of the way of him. So it's not just about walking and cycling, it's about equal opportunities, equality and diversity, and we mustn't forget people that do not get about by walking, cycling or car. Because I can't even go in a car at the moment, it has to be a taxi.
Thank you, very important point.
I think you got a very, very, very important point there. I have one of my big sisters is in a wheelchair because of a car accident when she was young. So I basically kind of grew up always looking at curbs and the conditions of pavements. And that was actually, I'm sorry, but that was one of the things that I saw here. A lot of your pavements basically need a makeover. I mean, because they are, if you are on wheels, and it's basically the same as a cyclist, and of course as a cyclist you should not go on the pavement, full stop. And I like the point that Kevin had about kind of classic anarchism, because we cannot, as people in the urban space, whether we are cyclists, pedestrians, in wheelchairs, not able to see, car drivers, but none of us can basically live with that we have anarchism in the urban space that we're going to share. But I saw a lot of pavement that was not well maintained. I actually also saw quite a lot of stairs in your urban layout, which is also not very good. So good being outspoken about it.
Thank you.
Hi there. Just wondering, obviously we're going to be waiting a long time for infrastructure to actually appear in Liverpool and be usable. Most of us here are long-term cyclists, and I know loads of people who have been injured and so on, both by the infrastructure and by vehicles and so on. So what can we do in the short term? I'm thinking about schools, and everyone must have noticed how the traffic situation is dramatically increased when the schools are taking the pupils in. It is very dramatic because during the holidays, the roads are really empty. Now that's including sort of secondary schools as well. So that's kids, 11-year-old plus, who are still getting dropped off and picked up. I'm just wondering if anyone's working with the schools to build infrastructure there to like make a safe cycle way to school, or to work with the police to say, okay, from 8:30 to 9 or 8 o'clock till 9 o'clock, the roads to this school are going to be prioritised for cycles and walking.
Can I pick up on that, Joey? Just like, we are currently working on a project in schools in Liverpool called Schools Neighbourhoods, and I guess it's taken, learning from mistakes for years and years and years. We've gone into schools and taught kids how to ride, and taught them how to turn left and turn right, and this, that, and the other, which we've done for donkey's years. But cycling to school levels have stayed at 2% for the last 20 years as well, so it's not really making much of a difference. So we have to start looking at the environment outside of schools, and working with schools, local communities to help design that space, because we need to be led by the issues that they have, not the ones that we think will solve the problem. But I think there's a wider point there, and it's not just about schools, and you hit the nail on the head when you talk about traffic. And you look what Denmark have done, but look what London are doing, look what Chris is doing in Manchester. It's having a defined strategic approach to how you deal with not just your cycle network, but also your road network and traffic and where it can go. It's not about completely being rid of cars out the street, but it's having them in the right place. So we have strategic cycle superhighways on strategic corridors where people need to get fast from A to B, but we also need to think about the neighbourhoods in between those corridors, and what do we do in these neighbourhoods in terms of just controlling traffic, rat running, speeds, parking on pavements, etc. So there's a whole suite of things we need to do, and there's no kind of quick fix, but having a strategic approach is probably the first thing that needs to come. So,
anybody else want to pick up, Sam?
Also, I'd add to that as well. I think you've got to own the message. When Andy and Chris called all the cycling commissioners from around the country together for a forum with 5 asks for central government, but then we just discussed how else can we use this lobby. We've represented cities of 22 million people, so how can we use this lobby to get across what needs to change? And I completely agree with you. But when the summer holidays kick in, all of a sudden you can move around the city in any way far easier, because the school run is just appalling. So, I'll give you a perfect example. Should I name it? Yeah. Chilwell Primary School. So, on Walton Road, they were trying to put in one of the LC whip corridors, and the cycling officer at Liverpool looking at it, and then it was just decided to announce to the school, we'll put in a segregated cycle lane outside your school. No engagement, no questions, didn't get the kids on board, just said this is happening. Do you know, funny enough, even though all of those people really encouraged, 68% of people want to see segregated cycle lanes, etc., until it means they can't stop directly outside the schools to drop the kids off. And then there was absolute no. And it's because we didn't own the message. And you're right, you said, perhaps you should shoot the messenger. So as part of what we're trying to work up, is to look around the country. And Denmark is a lovely example for us in the room, but if you say to most people, here's what they do in Denmark, they'll go, oh, that's Denmark, they're different. So how can you find examples within this country that are actual examples, not graphs, not ideas, not projections, where they've been bold enough to do it and it worked? There are schools that have put in no-go zones. They literally say you cannot park within a quarter of a mile of our school. And everyone goes mad. And then 3 years later, everyone's congregating outside the school, the kids are allowed to walk in safely, everyone hangs around, the kids are messing outside the school, and everyone goes, what a great idea. But to start with, it was really objectionable. And I think if we can go around and put on, use a multi-platform, multimedia platform to find those examples of schools where they've been bold enough to do it, then the message starts to be owned. That's what I think.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I agree with you, Simon. And it's about behavioural change and people recognising the impact that their behaviours are having on the kids and on the people. So in terms of the city region, we're looking at piloting around some schools in terms of during the school drop-off time that it's one way, so, or basically they can't come within. So it's early days, and again, engaging with the parents. The kids, they can go and tell their parents, but if their parents are dropping them to school, it's hard to get that behavioural change. But we all have to keep at it because, you said 20 years on, and now is the time for us to do something because at the end of the day, we might not be here 20 years from now, but it's our children, the legacy, and if we want them to change, we have to start somewhere.
Thank you. Coming to the back here.
Thank you. It's a question to Natalie, actually. We were councillors together once. When I was a councillor in Newton, I was doing a piece of work with families in social housing, and on that particular estate there were loads of bikes all broken, and I really wanted to do a project with Substance about teaching the children how to fix the bikes and teaching them how to ride the bikes. And for me, what I would love Natalie to do is to speak to all councillors about how they're using the neighbourhood fund, how they're engaging the young children, how they're working with companies like Substance, because we need to start at the very bottom. I think there's so many children who can work with local councillors and get cycling on the agenda locally in that community. I just didn't see much of it happening. I think there's big potential there.
Thank you.
Alice, can I just say something there?
Yeah.
Separate organisation is Substance. I want to speak about other organisations that are going on there. But again, going back to Blaine, I feel like I'm speaking for him here, like, you know what I mean? That man is connected more than any of our kids. He's done better work than any of us. Do you know what? He's a one-man band. He's never had strategic funding from anyone. He just kept on doing it, and then money started flowing in. It's become difficult. He's got very little support right across. People don't even know the boy, like, you know what I mean? But he's great. Substance aren't the people to do it. I'm sorry, they wouldn't listen to them. You really wouldn't. You've got to be cool going in there. Even I'm not cool enough. There's cool people out there who will do it, and that's the way you engage them. It's as far as I know, anyway.
Thank you, Alice, for that question. No, I think if we get kids on board, and obviously we get the pot of money called Rural Neighbourhood Fund that we can use to help community groups and individuals. So I will welcome that, actually, because I think we were having a discussion, something like that earlier, and rolling it out throughout the schools in the city region, not just Liverpool, but throughout the city region. So I'm happy to have a conversation about that moving forward.
Getting back a little bit to the school thing, just a recommendation. Maybe you could identify one of your public schools where there is a headmaster who's kind of on this agenda and kind of really working it through everything that you do in the school. Going on excursions on a bicycle, talking a lot about the everyday transportation. I really like the story about kind of drawing what you see, but kind of really, but of course, like in many other things, if the leadership is not on board, it's impossible to do. And a school headmaster that actually also has the strength to sometimes take the fights with the parents, because there's a lot of parents that you know have opinions about that it's unsafe and it's not good for the children. They may be a bit stressed. Actually, the UK is the most traffic safe country in Europe. There's a tendency to forget it. We actually forget in Denmark that we're number 2 because it's very high on the agenda that it should be, but the UK is actually quite traffic safe. And it's important to remember that. So kind of move cycling away from this culture of fear debate, because it is actually an extremely sane thing to do as a parent, to basically give your children both building a level of muscles, but definitely also getting that free experience in exploring your community, of course in a safe, secure environment, but basically kind of learning to grasp your community by yourself.
Thank you very much.
Hi guys. I'd just like to challenge something talking about political will, and particularly Simon, from what you said, that you feel that there is some sort of change. I and the rest of us, I'd be safe in saying that the rest of me said Tackle Campaign don't feel that there is any change will there. I did meet with the head of Liverpool Transport, and he is anticipating a 50% increase in traffic over the next 10 years. We've signed up for the climate emergency. That doesn't just go together. They've been trying to sell a lot of green spaces. Pollution in August at one weekend was 3 times worse than it was in London. The death rate from that air pollution is insane. It really is insane. They're not tackling it. They kill KSIs, killed seriously injured. It's the worst in the country for a city. It's a shameful record, and that's for walkers or pedestrians, and that's adults and children. The seat width that you've put up there, new and renovated, we talked about the first steps of that, and that's 55 k's of new and renovated. I'd be surprised, you talked about 16 million there, I'd be surprised if 5 or 10% of that is actually new, and it's a leisure route, and I appreciate what you're saying about your 4 mil and your leisure route as well. But as Klaus was saying, it should be direct. Anything else? Yeah, your job yourself, Sam. You're 2 days a week. Is it 2 days a week? Okay. We've got Manchester, we've got Sheffield, we've got other people's places around the country where the political will is there. So if behavioural change, which is what you're talking about, that is really going to happen, it needs to start at the top. Sorry, and that's it. Sorry. So I just bring it down on everything.
Just one thing, I think it's very important what you've said. I support it. But at the same time, I agree, start at the top, but I only got one thing to say. Greta Thunberg. Look at the change that one girl has brought to the whole world. Putting something up the agenda, phenomenal. So we just, while we think about starting at the top, she started right at the bottom, sitting on the steps of the Swedish Parliament, all on her own, for weeks, until somehow it took off. But that's not to detract from what you're saying, just to balance that. Sam, do you want to come back?
Yeah, I've been here for 20 years and banging on about the same thing as we all have. I feel it's different because basically 20 years ago, I was a vegetarian cyclist, right? I was a weirdo. Now, I'm only vegetarian, not good enough. I get picked on by vegans. And so I really think that the world has changed. Climate change. Okay, you're right. It's only weird to say we have a climate emergency. It's all very well. You're right. They're still planning these big highways. They're still trying to build the way out. And I lost my job over Edge Lane. For those of you that don't know, I swore very vociferously about the planners and government because of the redevelopment, as they called it, the demolition of beautiful buildings up Edge Lane. Go up Edge Lane now. Well, they just moved the bottleneck on 2 miles and destroyed vast swathes of the city. They will have to learn that you can't build your way out. And I think that message, they are slow to move, but I really think that message is changing. And it's almost like a perfect storm is arriving for our political leaders. Klaus has said that they have an obesity problem, they have a climate problem, they have a congestion problem, they have an air pollution problem. How can we tackle all these things? What's the easy fix? I know the easy fix. We all know the easy fix. And you're right, we've been going on about it for year upon year upon year. But I truly feel that we have ears into central government, we have a voice in central government sitting at the back, and we have a lot more kind of clout around the nation to build it all up. And I think that in the end, that the central government, the money will have to come from central government, I believe. But the political will here is not as lukewarm as it once was, I promise. That's what I feel when I speak to them.
Okay, next question.
Hello. I'm not actually a cyclist, I'm a walker, but I speak on behalf of my 3 kids and husband who are cyclists. And I don't think money is the solution at all, because I think the solution is deeper. It's about tolerance and respect. I think when I walk, I stop every street, have to wait until the cars go past me. If a car by any chance stops, I want to fall down on my knees and thank them, because it's very rare in this country. And I teach my kids the same thing, and it's sad that I have to tell them, watch out, make eye contact, see if they stop, if not wait, because it's your turn to wait. And it's, I think the reason that traffic is safest in this country is that everybody acknowledges that cars are the top dog, and everybody has to wait. And that's I think it's a big problem. My husband, for example, we had a cycle lane introduced near our house recently. It's terrible. And he encourages my kids to go on the street, which terrifies me, but he says it should be possible. And everybody should have the same right to it, not just the ones who pay car tax. So, but for that to happen, car drivers have to be tolerant and accept that cyclists have a right to the street as well. And to that little thing about school, sometimes the problem in a school is very small. We had a school, so we gave a cycling rack to our school because there was none. And within days, it was full of bikes. I mean, the rack is not big enough, but it's sometimes the problem is invisible. You know, you can't take a bike to school if you have no spot where to park it.
Exactly.
I took Klaus this afternoon to see the City Region authorities on the cycle yesterday, because we didn't think we'd be able to come here tonight. So we wanted at least to say, look, here's Denmark in your room, come out and meet. I mentioned that particular cycle route on Park Lane in the Baltic, how shocking it was, brand new, utterly shocking, desperate. And they went, what's wrong with it? What's wrong with it?
It's a waste of money.
Exactly. But nobody consulted families and children about it. Anybody want to come back on that one, Klaus?
I think you got a very, 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 very important point here. We were around in the inner city today, and I basically did not spot one single bicycle rack. Does that invite you at all to do this? I think, on a kind of meta level, I think it's one of the worst things if you're not seen as a person, if you're not recognized as a person. So I think it's very much kind of down my road. There's a very strong democracy part in this, that we basically have to make sure that, of course, cyclists and pedestrians are seen and recognized. And to be honest, I mean, we saw the numbers. Because they use active mobility, they contribute financially enormously to the city. They're very good citizens.
Okay, coming to the last question, I think.
Thank you, everyone. Not wanting to be too controversial here, but do you sometimes wonder whether we need to actually be more radical in our approach? Because there's predominantly a room here full of cyclists, I would argue, and we constantly hear the same stories day after day, social media, but nothing is moving forward quick enough. And obviously when I say radical, I don't mean violence or anything like that, but actually getting there where them roundabouts are and making a nuisance of ourselves so the general member of the public realises. Another thing I'd just like to say, in relation to, this is my last point, sorry, in relation to the school idea where it's one way, my 2 children are 8 and 10, and they actually introduced that, and basically what happened is all the cars just went one way and all parked one way, and you still couldn't really ride to school. So I'd rather say, instead of one way, just have no way, and see how it goes, because we just seem too far behind with everything in our approach.
Short question.
It's not so much a question, it's just
some years ago, I used to come into Liverpool to do a bike ride to critical mass. It was hardly a mass. But there were a group of people, there was probably at most 15 of us. We used to meet once a month. I didn't know anybody, I just used to come over from Birkenhead on my bike. And it was great, we just cycled around the city. Somebody had a trailer on one of the bikes, and we had a sound system. And everybody, when they heard the music, people would stop, they'd look to see what was going on, and they'd clap, yay, good to see you, and all this. But there's so many cyclists in this room. Where are you? Where are you en masse? Why can't you do a critical mass in Liverpool? It's not against the law.
You're not breaking any highway code or anything. You're just making your presence known, and therefore you're making yourself visible. They do it in London. It's huge. It's exciting. It's scary sometimes as well, like people are drinking at the same time. But it could be done more in Liverpool, and I don't even know if it still happens, because I stopped doing it because I changed my job, and then I wasn't always available on the last Friday of the month because I used to work in the evenings. But there must be people in here who know some of those people who used to do it, I'm sure. Mostly based around Sefton Park and up towards Egbert, I think.
Very important point, thank you so much. One last comment. Anybody want to make a comment?
I'm just going to say around. I'm just going to say around. Suppose I mentioned the word I've used before in terms of doing something different. I actually used to leave from the critical mass. It was good back in the day. My dad was a poster boy for he used to come along with sticks. He used to go along with around all the BMX.
I found that it was populated by bored people, to tell the truth. It wasn't people who were passionate about that's what the majority of people were just really bored. And it wasn't about the passion that really what you need to drive something home. You have something in your belly, you go, right, this is important to me. Whether it was my son making sure that he could ride or whoever. That was one point I'll say about them. Maybe they could be done differently. I felt that this morning more often they actually achieved, tell the truth. It's another point now what we've got to do. What would be really rebellious is actually to engage the card runners.